She pressed her 3 children against her chest as the auctioneer raised his gavel ready to sell her 8-year-old son to the highest bidder. Her screams echoed across the frozen town square, but no one moved to help. Then a voice cut through the bitter December wind. 5 words from a stranger that would change everything. This is the story of Sarah Grace Whitmore and the cowboy who refused to let a family be torn apart. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The gavel came down hard. Sold 1 healthy mare to Mr. Patterson for $12. Sarah Grace Whitmore flinched at the sound. She'd been standing in this frozen courtyard for 2 hours now, watching livestock and furniture disappear piece by piece. Her husband's plow, his tools, the rocking chair he'd made for their first anniversary. All gone. Her fingers were numb inside her worn gloves, but she barely noticed. She was too busy watching the auctioneer's assistant drag another item onto the platform. The children's bed. "Mama!" 8-year-old Samuel tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, that's our bed." "I know, baby. Where are we gonna sleep?" Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat had closed up the moment Sheriff Dawson appeared at her door 3 weeks ago, waving a stack of papers covered in her dead husband's signature. Debts. Thomas had left behind debts she never knew existed. Next item. The auctioneer. A florid man named Harwick with tobacco juice staining his beard consulted his ledger. "We got ourselves a—" He squinted at the paper, then looked up with something cruel flickering in his eyes. "Well now, seems we've reached the main attraction, folks." Sarah's stomach dropped. 1 widow, age 28. Good health. Knows cooking, cleaning, sewing, and basic doctoring. Harwick grinned at the crowd. Contract of indenture for 7 years to satisfy outstanding debts of $423. Murmurs rippled through the gathered townspeople. Sarah felt their eyes crawling over her like insects. People she'd known for 4 years. People she'd helped birth babies and nurse fevers. People who now looked at her like she was livestock. And 3 children. Harwick continued, his grin widening. To be sold separately after the mother. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Separately. No. The word tore from her throat before she could stop it. No, you can't. Mama, 5-year-old Abigail looked up at her blue eyes wide with confusion. What does he mean, sold? Hush now, sweet girl. Sarah pulled all 3 children closer. Little Hank, only 3, was already half asleep against her hip, his wooden dog clutched in his small fist. Everything's going to be fine. It was a lie. They both knew it. Mrs. Whitmore. Sheriff Dawson appeared at her elbow, his face carefully blank. It's time. You need to step up onto the platform. Please. Sarah grabbed his arm. Please, there has to be another way. I'll work off the debt myself. I'll work double, triple. Just don't separate us. They're children. They're babies. Dawson's jaw tightened. For a moment, something like sympathy flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone. The law is the law, ma'am. I'm sorry. The law. Sarah's voice cracked. The law says you can sell a mother's children right out of her arms. The law says debts must be paid. Dawson's hand closed around her elbow, not rough, but firm. Now please, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sarah looked down at Samuel, her firstborn, her brave boy who'd been trying so hard to be the man of the house since Thomas died. His green eyes. Thomas's eyes were blazing with fury and fear. I won't let them take us, Mama, he whispered fiercely. I won't. Sam, I'll fight them. I'll... Samuel Thomas Whitmore. Sarah's voice cut through his panic. She crouched down, ignoring the impatient shifting of the crowd, and took his face in her hands. Listen to me. Whatever happens today, whatever they do, you are my son. You will always be my son. Nobody can change that. Nobody can take that away. Do you understand? Tears were streaming down his face now, but he nodded. I need you to be brave. I need you to take care of your sister and brother. Can you do that for me? Yes, Mama. That's my good boy. She kissed his forehead, then Abigail's, then Hank's. I love you. I love you more than the sky, more than the stars, more than anything in this whole world. Don't you ever forget that. Mrs. Whitmore. Dawson's voice was harder now. Now. Sarah rose on shaking legs. She lifted Hank onto her hip and took Abigail's hand. Samuel walked beside her. His small fists clenched, his jaw set in a way that made her heart break. The platform was only 4 wooden steps, but climbing them felt like ascending to the gallows. The crowd pressed closer. 50, maybe 60 people, their breath fogging in the December air. Some faces showed pity, others showed calculation, and a few showed something that made Sarah's skin crawl. Now then, Harwick clapped his hands together, clearly enjoying himself. Let's start the bidding on the woman. $20. Do I hear $20? 20. A woman near the front raised her hand. Mrs. Cranston, who ran the boarding house. Not a bad woman, Sarah thought desperately. Not unkind. 25. A man's voice. Sarah didn't recognize it. 30. 35. The numbers climbed. Sarah stood frozen, watching her worth be calculated in dollars and cents. Beside her, Abigail had started to cry, quiet, hiccuping sobs that she tried to muffle against Sarah's skirt. $50. Mrs. Cranston again, her voice determined. 60. The unfamiliar man pushed forward, and Sarah got her first good look at him. Middle-aged, well-dressed, with a gold watch chain glinting against his vest. His eyes swept over her in a way that made her stomach turn. I'm Silas Crane, he announced, as if that should mean something. I'll pay $60 for the woman's contract. Harwick looked impressed. We have 60 from Mr. Crane. Do I hear 65? Silence. Going once at 60. Please. Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. Please, my children. Going twice. What about the boy? The question came from Silas Crane, and Sarah's blood ran cold. The children will be auctioned separately, Harwick reminded him. After we conclude the sale of the mother. I understand that. Crane's thin lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. But I'm interested in the boy. Strong-looking lad. I could use help on my property. Samuel pressed closer to Sarah. She could feel him trembling. Mama? He whispered. The children are separate lots, Harwick said. We'll get to them after. I'll pay $100 for both. Crane cut him off. The woman and the boy. Right now. Cash. The crowd buzzed with excited whispers. $100 was a fortune. Well now, Harwick rubbed his hands together. That's a generous offer, Mr. Crane. Very generous indeed. But the other 2 children? The girl and the little one. Crane waved dismissively. What use would I have for them? Sell them to whoever wants them. I only want the woman and the boy. Sarah couldn't breathe. Her lungs had stopped working. Her heart had stopped beating. Everything had narrowed down to this single horrifying moment. They were going to take Samuel. They were going to rip her son from her arms and give him to this cold-eyed man who looked at him like a piece of farm equipment. And Abigail and Hank, where would they go? Who would buy a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy? Would they be kept together? Would she ever see them again? No. The word came out stronger than she expected. Sarah stepped forward, putting herself between Crane and her children. No, I won't allow it. You won't allow it. Crane laughed, a sharp, unpleasant sound. My dear woman, I don't think you understand your position here. You don't have a say in, I'll die first. The words fell into the frozen air like stones into still water. The crowd went silent. I will die right here on this platform before I let you take my son. Sarah's voice was shaking, but her eyes were steady. Before I let anyone separate my children, you'll have to kill me first. Mama! Abigail wailed. Hank started crying, infected by his sister's distress. Samuel's arm wrapped around Sarah's waist, holding tight. "Mrs. Whitmore." Sheriff Dawson stepped onto the platform, his hand on his pistol. "You need to calm down. This is a legal proceeding and you're—" "Legal?" Sarah whirled on him. "You call this legal, selling children, tearing families apart? What kind of law allows this? What kind of God-fearing community stands by and watches?" Her eyes swept across the crowd, and she saw people flinch, saw them look away. "Mrs. Patterson." Sarah pointed at a woman near the back. "I delivered your grandson 6 months ago, sat with you all night when you thought you were going to lose him. Is this how you repay me?" Mrs. Patterson's face went red. She looked at the ground. "Mr. Harris, I nursed your wife through the fever last spring, made medicine from my own herbs when Doc Patterson was too far away to help. And now you're going to watch them sell my babies." Harris shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. "All of you." Sarah's voice rose raw with desperation. "You've eaten at my table. Your children have played with mine. We've worshipped together, worked together, buried our dead together. And not one of you, not one, will speak up for us." The silence was deafening. "That's enough." Harwick's voice had lost its jovial edge. "Sheriff, get her under control so we can proceed." "Ma'am?" Dawson reached for her arm. "Don't touch her." The voice came from somewhere in the back of the crowd. Deep, rough, carrying an authority that made people step aside. Sarah watched a man push through the gathered townspeople, tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the weathered look of someone who spent his life outdoors. His clothes were worn but clean, his boots scuffed from hard use. A hat sat low over his eyes, shadowing his face, but she could see the strong line of his jaw covered in several days' worth of dark stubble. He moved like a man who was used to people getting out of his way. And they did. "And who might you be?" Harwick demanded as the stranger stopped at the edge of the platform. "Name's Ezra Holloway." The man's voice was like gravel over stone. "I got a ranch about 15 miles north of here." "Good for you, Mr. Holloway." Crane's voice dripped with contempt. "But we're in the middle of a transaction here, and I don't see what business it is of yours." Holloway didn't even look at him, his eyes gray. Sarah noticed gray, like storm clouds, were fixed on her, on the children pressed against her, on Hank's tear-stained face, and Abigail's terrified eyes, and Samuel's fierce, desperate expression. "What's the total debt?" Holloway asked. "I beg your pardon," Harwick sputtered. "The debt. What's the full amount, all of it? Woman and children." Harwick consulted his papers, flustered. $423 plus fees. About $450 total, but I'll pay $500. The crowd gasped. $500. Holloway repeated clearly, for all 4 of them. The woman and all 3 children. Together, one sale. Sarah's heart stopped, then started again with a painful lurch. "Now hold on." Crane stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "I already made a bid on the woman and the boy. You can't just—" "Did you pay?" Holloway still didn't look at him. Well, no, not yet, but then I can." Holloway pulled a leather pouch from inside his coat. He loosened the drawstring and poured a cascade of gold coins onto the platform with a heavy clink. $500. Cash. Count it if you want." Harwick stared at the gold like a man who'd just seen the second coming. That's well above the asking price," he stammered. "Very generous, Mr. Holloway. But the proper procedure is to satisfy the debt." Holloway's voice had gone cold. "That's what this is about, ain't it? Collecting what's owed. Well, I'm offering more than enough to clear every penny. So take the money and let these folks go." "The children haven't been auctioned separately," Crane protested. "The boy alone might fetch—" "The boy ain't for sale." Holloway turned to face Crane for the first time, and something in his expression made the other man take a step back. "Neither is the girl or the little one. I'm buying them all. Together, as a family. Unless you want to outbid $500 in gold." Crane's mouth opened, closed. His face had gone an ugly shade of purple. "Well," Holloway's voice was deceptively soft. "You got $500, Mr. Crane? This is outrageous." Crane looked around for support, found none. "Sheriff, this man is interfering with a legal proceeding." "Looks to me like he's making a higher bid," Dawson said slowly. "That's legal enough." "Harwick." The auctioneer was still staring at the gold coins. $500, more than he'd expected to make from all the lots combined. His percentage alone would be substantial. "The bid is $500 for the woman's contract and custody of all 3 minor children," he announced, his voice steadier now. "Does anyone wish to counter?" Silence. Going once at 500. Sarah was trembling so hard she could barely stand. She clutched Hank tighter, felt Abigail's small hand gripping her skirt, heard Samuel's ragged breathing beside her. This couldn't be real. This stranger, this cowboy who'd appeared out of nowhere, was offering to keep them together. But why? Going twice. Why? The word burst from her lips before she could stop it. "Why would you do this? You don't know us. You don't—" Holloway's gray eyes met hers. For a moment, everyone else seemed to fade away. The crowd, the platform, the bitter December wind. There was something in his gaze that made her breath catch. Pain, maybe. Understanding. Recognition. "Because it's wrong," he said simply. "Selling folks off separate when they belong together. I don't care what the law says. Some things are just wrong. Sold." Harwick's gavel crashed down before anyone could object. "Sold to Mr. Ezra Holloway for $500. The crowd erupted in noise. Questions, protests, exclamations of surprise. Crane was shouting something about lawyers and proper procedure, but Sarah heard none of it. She sank to her knees on the platform, all the strength going out of her legs at once. The children immediately surrounded her, small arms wrapping around her, voices blending together. "Mama, what happened? Are we safe now? Mama, don't cry. Please don't cry." But she couldn't stop. The tears came in great shuddering waves, releasing weeks of terror and grief and desperate hope. She pulled her children close and sobbed into their hair, not caring who saw, not caring what anyone thought. They were together. Against all odds, against everything she'd feared, they were still together. Boots appeared in her line of vision. Then a hand, rough and calloused, extended toward her. "Ma'am?" Sarah looked up. Holloway stood there, his expression unreadable beneath the shadow of his hat. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the scar that ran along his jaw, the gray threading through his dark hair at the temples. He was younger than she'd first thought, maybe mid-30s, but his eyes looked older. Much older. "Can you stand?" he asked. Sarah took his hand. His grip was firm but careful, like someone who knew his own strength and was mindful not to use too much of it. He pulled her to her feet easily, steadying her when she swayed. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to. I can never—" "Don't thank me yet." His voice was gruff, but not unkind. "We got a long ride ahead, and I need you to understand some things before we go." Anything. Sarah would have agreed to anything in that moment. "You're not my property," Holloway said clearly. "Not you or these children. The law might say I hold your contract, but I don't believe in owning people. You'll work for me, yes. I got a ranch that needs managing, and I'm told you know your way around a household. But you'll be paid fair wages, $2 a week, plus room and board for you and the children." Sarah stared at him. $2 a week was more than most ranch hands made. "The children won't be worked," he continued. "They're children, not laborers. They'll have food, shelter, and time to be young. There's a school in town when the weather allows. If you want them educated, I'll see to it." "Mr. Holloway." "And you'll have your own space," he cut in. "A cabin on the property. Your own door, your own lock. I won't enter without your permission. You and the children will be safe there. Safe from me, safe from anyone else. That clear?" Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. "Good." Holloway turned to look at the children who were watching him with varying expressions. Abigail with curious hope, Hank with sleepy confusion, Samuel with deep suspicion. He crouched down, bringing himself to their eye level. "You're Samuel, right?" he said to the older boy. Samuel nodded warily. "Your mama told you to be brave and take care of your brother and sister. I heard that. And I want you to know that's your job, not mine. You're the man of your family, and I respect that. I'm not here to replace your pa or to take over. I'm just offering you folks a place to stay and work that don't involve being split up. That sound fair?" Samuel studied him for a long moment. Sarah could practically see the wheels turning in her son's head, weighing this stranger's words against everything he'd learned about the cruelty of the world. "Why should I believe you?" Samuel finally asked. Holloway's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "Smart boy. You shouldn't believe me, not yet. Trust is earned, not given. So here's what I'll say. You watch me. Watch how I treat your mama, how I treat your sister and brother. Watch what I do, not what I say. And if I ever give you reason to doubt my word, you tell me straight. Deal." He held out his hand. Samuel looked at it, then at his mother, then back at Holloway. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and shook. "Deal," he said. "Good." Holloway straightened up. "Now my wagon's around back. We got about 4 hours of hard riding before we reach the ranch, and it's only getting colder. We should move." He gathered up the gold coins, handed the required amount to Harwick, along with a hard look that dared the auctioneer to argue about fees, and collected the signed papers that transferred Sarah's contract to his name. Sarah watched him move through the crowd, parting it like water around a stone, and felt something strange blooming in her chest. Not hope, she wasn't ready for hope, not yet, but something that felt for the first time in weeks, like maybe they had a chance. "Mama?" Abigail tugged at her hand. "Is that man going to be our new papa?" "No, sweet girl." Sarah looked down at her daughter's upturned face, at the innocent trust in her blue eyes. He's giving us a place to stay. That's all." "I like him," Abigail announced. "He has kind eyes." Sarah looked back at Holloway, who was now helping someone load the few belongings she'd been allowed to keep into his wagon. Kind eyes. She wasn't sure she'd use that word. His eyes were storm gray and guarded, holding secrets she couldn't begin to guess. But he'd stood up when no one else would. He'd paid a fortune to keep her family together, and whatever his reasons, whatever he expected in return, she owed him everything. "Come on," she said, gathering her children close. "Let's go." They climbed down from the platform, that horrible platform, where she'd stood waiting to lose everything, and walked toward the wagon. The crowd parted for them now, some faces showing shame, others showing relief, a few showing something that looked almost like respect. Silas Crane stood at the edge of the square, watching them go. His face was a mask of cold fury, and when his eyes met Sarah's, something in his gaze made her shiver. "This isn't over," that look seemed to say. "This isn't over at all." Sarah turned away and kept walking. The wagon was sturdy and well-maintained, with a canvas cover stretched over a frame of bent wood. Inside, blankets and buffalo robes were piled high, and Sarah realized with a start that Holloway must have prepared for this, must have known somehow that he'd be bringing people back with him today. But how? "Why, in you go," Holloway said, appearing beside her. He lifted Hank from her arms as easily as if the boy weighed nothing and settled him in the wagon bed with surprising gentleness. "There's hot bricks wrapped in cloth under the blankets. Should keep you warm for a while." "You planned this," Sarah heard herself say. "You came here planning to buy someone." Holloway's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Heard there was an auction," he said. Heard there was a family being sold. Decided I didn't like the sound of that. But how did you? Questions later. His voice brooked no argument. Right now we ride. He helped her up into the wagon, then Abigail, then Samuel, who still watched him with suspicious eyes. Then he climbed up onto the driver's seat, took up the reins, and clicked his tongue at the horses. The wagon lurched forward. Sarah settled against the blankets, pulling her children close. The hot bricks were a blessed relief against the bitter cold, and she felt some of the tension start to drain from her body. They were leaving. They were together. They were alive. Outside the town of Willow Creek fell away behind them, and ahead stretched the endless prairie white with snow and bright under the pale December sun. Wherever they were going, whatever awaited them at Ezra Holloway's ranch, it had to be better than what they were leaving behind. It had to be. Sarah closed her eyes and held her children tight, and for the first time in weeks, allowed herself to breathe. The wagon hit a rut, and Hank whimpered in his sleep. Sarah pulled him closer, tucking the buffalo robe tighter around his small body. They'd been riding for nearly 2 hours now, and the silence from the driver's seat was starting to feel heavy. "Mama," Samuel's voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't trust him." "I know, baby. He could be worse than that other man, the one with the cold eyes. We don't know anything about him." Sarah glanced toward the front of the wagon where Holloway sat with his back to them, handling the reins. He hadn't spoken a word since they left Willow Creek. "We don't have a choice right now," she whispered back. "But I'm watching. I promise you, I'm watching." "I got Pa's knife." Samuel patted his pocket. "If he tries anything—" "Samuel!" Sarah's voice sharpened. "You listen to me. You don't pull that knife unless I tell you to. Understand, you're 8 years old. You can't fight a grown man." "I can try." The fierce determination in his voice broke her heart. He was too young for this. Too young to be thinking about protecting his family with a pocket knife against a stranger twice his size. "Just watch," she said softly. "Like he told you. Watch what he does." The wagon slowed. "We're stopping," Holloway called back. "Horses need water. There's a creek up ahead." Sarah tensed. Stopping meant vulnerability. Stopping meant, you can stretch your legs if you want. Holloway continued, his voice casual. "But stay close. Weather's turning." He climbed down from the seat and moved toward the horses without looking back. Sarah watched him through a gap in the canvas, watched the easy way he moved, the gentleness in his hands as he led the animals to drink. "Mama, I need to go." Abigail tugged at her sleeve, her face pinched with discomfort. "All right, sweet girl. Come on." Sarah climbed out of the wagon, lifting Abigail down after her. The cold hit her like a fist, stealing her breath. She'd forgotten how bitter it was outside the cocoon of blankets. "Over there." She pointed toward a cluster of bushes. "I'll watch for you." Abigail scampered off, and Sarah turned to find Holloway watching her. "She all right? Just needs a moment of privacy?" He nodded and turned back to the horses. Sarah stood there, arms wrapped around herself against the cold, and studied him. The way he checked each horse's hooves. The way he ran his hands along their flanks, murmuring something she couldn't hear. There was tenderness there. Care. A man who was gentle with animals couldn't be all bad. Could he? "You got questions?" She startled. He hadn't turned around, but somehow he knew she was watching. "I got 100 questions," she admitted. "Ask." "Why? That's a big question." "It's the only one that matters." Holloway straightened up and finally turned to face her. His gray eyes were unreadable in the pale winter light. "Had a wife once," he said. "Rebecca. She died 4 years ago. Childbirth." Sarah's breath caught. "I'm sorry. Baby died too. Boy. Never even got to hold him." Holloway's voice was flat, emotionless, but something in his eyes told a different story. "After that, I just worked. Built the ranch, bred horses, kept busy, figured that was enough. And then..." Then I heard about an auction in Willow Creek. Heard they were selling a widow and her children separate. Heard the woman was fighting like hell to keep her family together." He paused. Reminded me of Rebecca. The way she fought. The way she never gave up, not until the very end. Sarah didn't know what to say. "I couldn't save her," Holloway continued quietly. "Couldn't save my son, but I figured maybe I could save someone else's family. Maybe that would count for something." "Count for something with who?" "God, the universe, my own conscience." He shrugged. "Don't rightly know, just knew I had to do it." Abigail came running back, her cheeks red from the cold. "Mama, I'm freezing." "Back in the wagon, sweet girl. We'll be warm soon." Sarah lifted her daughter up, then turned back to Holloway. He was already moving toward the driver's seat. "Mr. Holloway." He paused. "Thank you for telling me." He nodded once, then climbed up and took the reins. The wagon lurched forward again. Fulton. They'd been moving for another hour when Samuel suddenly sat up straight. "Someone's following us." Sarah's blood went cold. "What?" "I've been watching through the back. There's a rider. Been keeping distance, but he's there." Holloway's voice came from the front, sharp and alert. "How long?" "Since we stopped at the creek. Maybe before." Sarah heard Holloway curse under his breath. Then the wagon picked up speed, the horses breaking into a trot that made the whole frame shake. "Get down," Holloway ordered. "All of you. Under the blankets. Now." "What's happening?" Abigail's voice rose with fear. "Mama, what's—" "Hush, baby. Do as he says." Sarah pushed her children flat, covering them with her body, her heart hammering against her ribs. She could hear hoofbeats now, getting closer. "Holloway!" The shout came from behind them. A man's voice. Familiar. Sarah's stomach dropped. Silas Crane. "Holloway, stop that wagon. We have business to discuss." The wagon didn't slow. If anything, it went faster. "You can't outrun me." Crane's voice was closer now. "I just want to talk." "Keep driving," Sarah heard herself say. "Please, don't stop." "Wasn't planning on it." But Crane's horse was faster than the wagon. Sarah heard him pull alongside, heard the creak of leather as he matched their pace. "This is ridiculous," Crane shouted. "I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just want to make you an offer." "Not interested." "You haven't heard it yet." "Don't need to." $500. Crane's voice had taken on a wheedling tone. "That's what you paid, right? I'll give you 600. Right now. For the woman and the boy. You keep the other two, sell them, do whatever you want. $600, Holloway. That's profit." Sarah felt Samuel go rigid beside her. "The answer is no." 700. "No. You're being unreasonable. And you're following a man through a snowstorm to buy human beings." Holloway's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Way I see it, only one of us is being unreasonable, and it ain't me. I could make things very difficult for you." The wheedling tone was gone now, replaced by something cold and threatening. "I have friends in this territory, important friends. One word from me and one word from you and what?" Holloway cut him off. "You'll send the sheriff after me for making a legal purchase. You'll spread rumors about me. Go ahead. I don't give a damn what people say." "You should." Crane's voice was ice. "You really should. Get off my land, Crane." "This isn't your land. We're still 3 miles from—" "Close enough. Leave. Now. Before I decide to stop being polite." There was a long, tense moment. Sarah held her breath, her arms wrapped protectively around her children. Then she heard Crane laugh. A cold, ugly sound. "This isn't over, Holloway. That woman and those children, they're worth something to me. And I always get what I want. Always." Hoofbeats. Fading. Getting farther away. Sarah didn't move until she couldn't hear them anymore. "He's gone," Holloway said finally. "You can sit up now." Sarah pushed herself upright, her whole body shaking. Samuel's face was white. Abigail was crying silently. Even Hank, who'd slept through most of it, was awake now, his eyes huge and frightened. "Who was that man?" Abigail whimpered. "Why does he want us?" "He doesn't want you, sweet girl." Sarah pulled her close. He's confused, that's all. He won't bother us again." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. She'd seen Silas Crane's eyes at the auction. She'd heard his voice just now. He wasn't confused. He was obsessed. And obsessed men didn't give up easily. "Mr. Holloway." Samuel's voice was steadier than Sarah expected. "That man. Is he dangerous?" A pause. Then, "Yes." "Will he come back?" "Probably." "What are we going to do about it?" Another pause. Longer this time. "We're going to be ready," Holloway said finally. "That's what we're going to do." The ranch appeared through the falling snow, like something out of a dream. Sarah saw the main house, first 2 stories solid timber with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Then the barn, massive and well-maintained. Corrals with horses moving like shadows. Smaller buildings scattered across the property. And set apart from everything else, maybe 50 yards from the main house, a small cabin with smoke already rising from its chimney. "That's yours," Holloway said, nodding toward the cabin. "Had Jed get it ready when I left this morning." "Jed." "Jedediah Cooper, my foreman. You'll meet him in a minute. He's—" Holloway paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "He's a good man. Best man I know, actually. But some folks around here don't see it that way." Sarah didn't understand what he meant until they pulled into the yard and a man emerged from the barn. He was black, older than Holloway, maybe 50, with gray in his close-cropped hair and a face that had seen hard years. He moved with the careful economy of someone who'd learned to make himself small in a world that wanted him smaller. "Jed." Holloway climbed down from the wagon. "Any trouble while I was gone?" "None worth mentioning." Jed's eyes moved to Sarah and the children. This is them. Sarah Whitmore and her 3 children, Samuel, Abigail, and Hank." Jed nodded slowly. "Ma'am?" "Children." "Mr. Cooper." Sarah wasn't sure what else to say. She'd known black folks back in Missouri, had even been friendly with some, but she'd never lived alongside one, never worked with one. She pushed down the discomfort. This man worked for Holloway. That made him an ally, not a threat. "The cabin ready?" Holloway asked. "Fire's lit. Stocked the shelves with basics. Should be comfortable enough." "Good. Help me get their things unloaded." There wasn't much to unload. A single trunk of clothes. A box of kitchen items. The children's few toys. Everything else had been sold to pay Thomas's debts. Sarah carried Hank, who was half asleep again, toward the cabin. Samuel and Abigail followed close behind, still wary, still watching everything with suspicious eyes. The cabin was small but clean. One main room with a wood stove, a table with 4 chairs, and a bed large enough for all of them. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with flour sugar coffee and other necessities. Someone had even hung curtains on the single window. "It's perfect," Sarah breathed. "It's basic," Holloway said from the doorway. "But it's warm and it's safe. Door locks from the inside." He held out a key. Sarah took it, and their fingers brushed. She pulled back quickly, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "Thank you," she managed. "Tomorrow I'll show you the main house. Explain what needs doing. Tonight, rest. You've had a hard day." He turned to go. "Mr. Holloway," he paused. "That man, Crane, if he comes here, he won't get past the gate." Holloway's voice was hard. "I got men watching the property. Good men, loyal. Anyone rides up uninvited, I'll know about it." "But what if—" "Mrs. Whitmore." He turned back, and something in his eyes made her fall silent. "I made you a promise. I said you'd be safe here. I don't break my promises. Not ever. So you sleep tonight. You rest. And you let me worry about Silas Crane." Then he was gone, his boots crunching on the frozen ground as he walked toward the main house. Sarah stood in the doorway watching him go, the key clutched tight in her hand. "Mama." Samuel appeared at her elbow. "I still don't trust him." "I know, baby. But I think—" He paused, his young face struggling with complicated emotions. "I think maybe he's telling the truth. About keeping us safe." "What makes you say that?" Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then, the way he talked to that Crane man. His voice changed. Got harder, like Pa's used to when someone threatened us. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "You remember that?" "I remember everything about Pa." Samuel's voice was fierce. "Everything." She pulled him into a hug. "I know you do, baby. I know." The first few days passed in a blur of activity. Sarah threw herself into work, rising before dawn to prepare breakfast at the main house, spending her days cleaning, organizing, and bringing order to what had clearly been a bachelor's domain for too long. The kitchen was a disaster. The pantry was chaos. Dust covered every surface. She scrubbed and sorted and polished, and slowly the house began to transform. Holloway noticed. She could tell by the way he paused in doorways, his eyes taking in the changes. By the way he ate her cooking simple fare, but hot and well prepared, with the enthusiasm of a man who'd been living on his own bad meals for too long. But he didn't say much. A nod here. A thank you there. Mostly he was gone before she arrived in the morning and didn't return until after dark. It was Jed who told her why. "He's checking the fences," the foreman explained one afternoon when Sarah brought him coffee in the barn. "All of them. Every inch of property line." "Because of Crane?" Jed's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Crane's been wanting this land for years. Made offers. Got refused. Man like that doesn't take kindly to being told no." "What kind of man is he really?" "The dangerous kind." Jed sipped his coffee. "Rich. Connected. Used to getting what he wants. And patient, ma'am. That's the worst part. Man like Crane doesn't come at you head on. He waits, watches, finds your weakness, then he strikes." Sarah felt cold, despite the warmth of the barn. "Why does he want me us?" Jed was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Man like Crane doesn't see people as people, sees them as things, possessions. You stood up to him at that auction. Made him look foolish in front of the whole town. That's not something he'll forget. So he wants revenge. He wants to win." Jed met her eyes. "It's not about you, ma'am. Not really. It's about proving he's the most powerful man in the territory. That nobody says no to him and gets away with it." Sarah thought about Crane's voice on the road. The cold certainty in his words. "I always get what I want. Always." "What do? We stay alert." Jed finished his coffee and handed back the cup. "We watch each other's backs, and we trust that Zeke knows what he's doing." "Zeke. That's his name. Ezra, but everybody calls him Zeke." Jed almost smiled. "He doesn't like it when I call him Mr. Holloway. Says it makes him feel old." Sarah filed that away. Zeke. It suited him better than Ezra somehow. Less formal, more real. The trouble started on the fourth day. Samuel had been helping Jed in the barn learning about horses, keeping busy. He'd been quiet and watchful, just as Sarah had asked. But something had shifted in him that morning. Something dark. Sarah was in the main house kneading bread dough when she heard shouting from outside. She ran. In the yard, Samuel stood facing Tommy Brennan, the young Irish ranch hand. The boy's face was twisted with fury. His fists clenched, his whole body trembling with rage. "Take it back," Samuel screamed. "Take it back." "Lad, I didn't mean—" Tommy's hands were up, placating. "You said my pa was a coward. You said he ran away from his debts. Take it back." "Samuel." Sarah grabbed her son's arm. "What's going on?" "He said Pa was a coward." Tears were streaming down Samuel's face now. He said Pa left us in debt because he was weak. But that's not true. Pa wasn't weak. He was sick. He was dying, and he didn't tell us because he didn't want us to worry. Sarah felt the world tilt. What? I heard him and Mama talking. Samuel's voice broke. Before he died. He knew. He knew he was dying, and he borrowed money for medicine, and it didn't work, and... Great sobs racked his small body. He wasn't a coward. He was trying to save himself so he could stay with us. Sarah sank to her knees in the frozen dirt and pulled her son into her arms. Over his head, she saw Holloway Zeke standing at the edge of the yard watching. "Oh, baby," she whispered. "Oh, Samuel, why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were so sad already." His voice was muffled against her shoulder. "Because I thought if I told you, it would make it worse. But I couldn't. I couldn't let him say those things about Pa. I couldn't." I know, baby. It's all right." Tommy had gone pale. "Ma'am, I swear I didn't know. I was just making conversation. I didn't mean—" "It's all right, Tommy." Sarah's voice was steadier than she felt. "It's not your fault. I should have kept my mouth shut. My ma always said I talk too much. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He fled toward the bunkhouse, leaving Sarah and Samuel alone in the yard. Alone except for Zeke, who still hadn't moved. "Samuel." His voice was quiet but carried clearly. "Look at me." Samuel lifted his head from Sarah's shoulder, his face blotchy with tears. "Your pa borrowed money to try to save his own life," Zeke said. "So he could stay with his family. So he could watch you grow up. That's not cowardice, son. That's love. The bravest kind of love there is." Samuel stared at him. "My pa was a drunk," Zeke continued. "Spent every penny we had on whiskey. Never once thought about me or my mother. Never once tried to be better. That's cowardice. What your pa did? That's the opposite." "You really think so?" "I know so." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My pa used to say that a man's worth isn't measured by how much money he has. It's measured by how hard he tries to take care of the people he loves." "Your pa was right." Samuel wiped his nose with his sleeve. "He said you could tell a lot about a man by the way he treats horses, and children, and people who can't fight back. Also right. You're good with horses." Samuel's voice was hesitant now, feeling his way through something complicated. "Jed told me. Said you're the best horseman in the territory. Jed talks too much. And you've been good to us. To Mama and Abby and Hank and me, even though you don't have to be." Zeke didn't respond. "I think—" Samuel took a shaky breath. "I think maybe my pa would have liked you." Something shifted in Zeke's expression. Something that looked almost like pain. "I hope so," he said quietly. "I truly hope so." He turned and walked away toward the barn. Sarah held her son for a long time there in the frozen yard, feeling something shift between them. Between all of them. That night after the children were asleep, Sarah found herself drawn to the main house. She told herself she was just checking on things, making sure the fire was banked properly, making sure everything was ready for tomorrow. But when she pushed open the door, she found Zeke sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of something amber in front of him that he wasn't drinking. "Mrs. Whitmore." He started to rise. "Please, don't get up." She hesitated in the doorway. "I wanted to thank you for what you said to Samuel today." Didn't say anything that wasn't true. Still, it meant something to him. It meant something to me, too. She came further into the room, drawn by something she couldn't name. "Your wife," she said softly. "Rebecca. You must have loved her very much." Zeke's hand tightened on the glass. "I did. I loved Thomas, too. Not at first. We were young when we married, and it was more practical than romantic. But over time, he became everything to me. And when I lost him, the world ended." Yes. Sarah felt tears threatening. Exactly. The world ended. They sat in silence for a moment. Two people who understood loss. Who understood what it meant to keep going when everything you loved was gone. It gets easier, Zeke said finally. That's what people tell you. And they're not wrong. But it doesn't go away. Not completely. You just learn to carry it differently. Is that what you've done? Learn to carry it differently? I've tried. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and Sarah felt something spark in the air between them. Some days are easier than others. And today? Today was a hard one. He pushed back from the table and stood. You should get back to the cabin. It's late. The children might wake. Of course. Sarah moved toward the door, then stopped. Mr. Holloway Zeke. He went very still at the sound of his name. Whatever your reasons for saving us guilt redemption, the memory of your wife, I want you to know that I'm grateful. We all are. And I promise you, I'll work hard. I'll earn my place here. I won't make you regret what you did. I already don't regret it. His voice was rough, honest. It made something warm bloom in Sarah's chest. Good night, Zeke. Good night, Sarah. She walked back to the cabin through the cold and the dark, and for the first time since Thomas died, she felt something other than grief. She felt hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. And she wasn't sure if that terrified her or thrilled her. Maybe both. 2 weeks passed. Sarah fell into the rhythm of ranch life like she'd been born to it. Up before dawn. Breakfast for Zeke and the hands. Cleaning, mending, organizing. Dinner. Bed. Repeat. The children were thriving. Abigail had claimed a corner of the yard for a winter garden, already planning what she'd plant when spring came. Hank followed Tommy around like a small shadow, the young ranch hand surprisingly patient with his constant questions. And Samuel was transforming before her eyes, losing some of that rigid tension that had held him since Thomas died. Jed had taken the boy under his wing, teaching him about horses, about ranching, about the 1,000 small skills a man needed to survive in this territory. Sarah watched them together, sometimes the grizzled foreman and her fierce young son, and felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe they would be all right. Maybe this strange new life would work. Then the letter came. Sarah was kneading bread when Zeke walked into the kitchen, his face hard as stone. He slapped a piece of paper onto the table. What is it? Read it. She wiped her hands on her apron and picked up the letter. Official looking, fancy letterhead, legal language that made her head spin, but she understood enough. He's challenging the sale. Her voice came out flat, numb. Crane is challenging the sale. Says the auction wasn't properly conducted. Says the children should have been sold separately. Says he had a prior bid that wasn't honored. That's a lie. Course it is, but he's got a lawyer in Cheyenne who's willing to swear otherwise, and a judge who owes him favors. Sarah's hands were shaking. The letter trembled between her fingers. What does this mean? Can he actually? He's demanding a new hearing. Says if the court finds in his favor the original sale is void, you and the children would go back on the block. The room spun. Sarah grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. No, I won't let him. I'll run. I'll take the children and go where? Zeke's voice was gentle but firm. Sarah, look at me. She forced herself to meet his eyes. I'm not going to let him take you. Any of you. This letter, it's a scare tactic. He's trying to make us panic. Make us do something stupid. Then what do? We fight, legally. I've got a lawyer too, and mine's better than his. Zeke took the letter from her trembling hands. I'm riding to Cheyenne tomorrow. Meeting with a man named Harrison. Best legal mind in the territory. If there's a way to shut Crane down, Harrison will find it. How long will you be gone? 3 days, maybe 4. Sarah felt panic rising in her chest. You can't leave us here alone. What if Crane? Jed will be here, and Tommy and the other hands. Nobody's getting onto this property without going through them first. But, Sarah. Zeke stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell leather and horse and something uniquely him. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She looked up at him. At the hard planes of his face, the gray eyes that held hers with unwavering steadiness. At the man who had paid a fortune to keep her family together. Who had stood between her and Crane on a frozen road. Who had given her son hope and her daughter's safety, and her something she wasn't ready to name. Yes, she whispered. I trust you. Good. Then trust that I'll fix this. That I'll come back. That everything is going to be all right. He left at dawn the next morning. Sarah stood on the porch and watched him ride away. Her children clustered around her and tried to believe his promise. But the knot of fear in her stomach wouldn't ease. The first day passed quietly. Too quietly. Sarah threw herself into work scrubbing floors that were already clean, organizing shelves that didn't need organizing. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. Samuel noticed. Mama, you're going to wear a hole in that table if you keep rubbing it. Sarah forced herself to stop. I'm just cleaning. You're worrying. I'm not. She caught his knowing look and sighed. All right. Maybe I'm worrying a little. Mr. Holloway will fix it. Samuel's voice was certain. He said he would, and he doesn't lie. When did you become such a believer? I've been watching, like he told me to. Samuel sat down across from her. He keeps his promises, Mama. Every single one. If he says he's going to do something, he does it. That's not something you can fake. Sarah studied her son. When had he grown so wise? When had he stopped being a frightened boy and started becoming someone she could lean on? You're right, she said softly. He does keep his promises. So we wait. And we trust. And we don't let that Crane man scare us. When did you get so brave? Samuel's jaw tightened. I was always brave, Mama. I just didn't know it yet. The second day brought trouble. Sarah was in the barn with Jed, learning how to properly groom the horses, when Tommy came running. Riders coming, 4 of them. Jed's hand went to the pistol at his hip. Get inside, he told Sarah. Now. But, now, ma'am, take the children and get to the cabin. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Sarah ran. She found the children in the yard, Abigail showing Hank how to make snow angels. She scooped Hank up and grabbed Abigail's hand. Come on, we need to go inside. But Mama, we were playing. Now, Abigail. Something in her voice must have communicated the danger. Both children fell silent and let her hustle them toward the cabin. Samuel met them at the door. I saw the riders. Who are they? I don't know. Get inside. She pushed them through the door and slammed it shut, throwing the bolt with trembling fingers. Then she pressed her back against it and listened. Voices, men's voices. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was aggressive, demanding. Mama. Abigail's voice was small. What's happening? Nothing, sweet girl. Just some visitors for Mr. Cooper. We're staying inside until they leave. Are they bad men? Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. The voices got louder, angrier. She heard Jed's voice calm and steady, and then another voice she didn't recognize, harsh and threatening, then a gunshot. Abigail screamed. Hank started crying. Samuel grabbed the poker from beside the cold stove, his face white but determined. Samuel, no. I won't let them take us, Mama. I won't. Sarah's heart was pounding so hard she could barely think. She pressed her ear to the door, straining to hear. More voices. Then Tommy's voice, young and scared. You can't just... We can do whatever we want, boy. Mr. Crane owns this territory, and he wants to send Mrs. Whitmore a message. Sarah's blood ran cold. Get back on your horses and ride out. Jed's voice was ice. Now, before this gets worse. Worse for who there's 4 of us and 2 of you. 1 of you ain't even armed. I'm armed enough. An old black man with a rusty pistol, don't make me laugh. This old black man fought Comanche raiders and Confederate soldiers. You think 4 hired thugs are going to scare me? A long, tense silence. Then, Mr. Crane wants the woman to know that he's watching. That legal papers are just the beginning. That if she knows what's good for her and those children, she'll pack up and come to him willingly. Save everybody a lot of trouble. You delivered your message. Now leave. We leave when we're ready. You leave now, or you don't leave at all. Sarah heard the click of a gun being cocked. Then another. Then a third. Seems we got ourselves a standoff, the harsh voice said. Question is, how much are you willing to die for a woman who ain't even yours? She's under my protection. Jed's voice didn't waver. That's enough. Another agonizing silence. Then, have it your way, old man. We delivered our message. But you tell that woman this ain't over, not by a long shot. Hoofbeats. Getting farther away. Fading into distance. Sarah waited until she couldn't hear them anymore before she opened the door. Jed stood in the yard, pistol still in his hand, his face carved from stone. Tommy was beside him, pale and shaking. Are you hurt? Sarah demanded. I heard a shot. Warning shot. Jed holstered his pistol. Into the air. Nobody's hurt. What did they want? Jed met her eyes, and something in his gaze made her stomach drop. To scare you. To make you run. I'm not running. Good. Jed nodded slowly. Because running is exactly what Crane wants. He's trying to flush you out. Make you leave the protection of this ranch so he can grab you on the open road. How do you know that? Because that's what I would do if I were him. Jed's voice was grim. Zeke knows this land, knows how to defend it. As long as you're here, you're safe. But if you run... We're sitting ducks. Yes, ma'am. Sarah's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, trying to still them. What do? We wait for Zeke. We stay alert. And we don't let Crane's games get inside our heads. Easier said than done. Most things are. Jed turned to Tommy. I want someone on watch at all times, day and night. Anything moves out there, I want to know about it. Yes, sir. As Tommy hurried away, Jed looked back at Sarah. You did good, ma'am. Keeping the children inside. Keeping calm. I wasn't calm. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs doing despite the fear. Jed's weathered face softened slightly. Your boy Samuel. He was ready to fight, wasn't he? With a fireplace poker. Brave kid. Reminds me of someone I used to know. Who? Zeke. When he was about that age. Jed shook his head. All fire and fury. Ready to take on the world with nothing but grit and determination. What happened to him? Life. Same thing that happens to all of us. Jed moved toward the barn. Get inside, ma'am. Keep those children close. I'll make sure we're locked down tight. Sarah gathered her children and went back to the cabin. But she didn't sleep that night. None of them did. The third day dawned gray and bitter cold. Sarah had finally convinced the children to rest, all 4 of them piled together on the bed, when she heard hoofbeats approaching. She grabbed the rifle Jed had given her the night before and pressed herself against the window. One rider. Coming fast. Her finger found the trigger. Then the rider came into view, and Sarah's breath left her in a rush. Zeke. She was out the door before she knew she was moving, running across the frozen ground, the rifle forgotten in her hand. You're back. You're early. What happened is everything. Zeke swung down from his horse and grabbed her shoulders. Where are the children? Inside, sleeping. Why? What's wrong? Crane's men, they were here. Jed told me. Yesterday. They delivered a message, tried to scare us. Zeke's grip tightened. Did they hurt you? Did they touch you? No. Jed stopped them. He was... Sarah suddenly became aware of how close they were standing, of the wild fear in his eyes, of the way his hands trembled on her shoulders. "Zeke, I'm fine. We're all fine." He let out a breath. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. "I rode through the night. Soon as I heard. Couldn't. I'm fine," she said again, softer this time. "We're all fine." They stood like that for a long moment, breath mingling in the cold air. Then Zeke pulled back. "The hearing's been postponed. Harrison filed a motion. We've got 30 days before they can even schedule it." "That's good, right?" "It's a start. Harrison's digging into Crane's past, looking for ammunition. There's things there, things he's done that could hurt him bad if they came out." "What kind of things?" "The kind that could put him in prison." Zeke's jaw tightened. "This isn't just about you, Sarah. Crane's been running roughshod over this territory for years, buying judges, threatening witnesses, making people disappear. Harrison says if we can build a strong enough case, we don't just beat him, we destroy him. And if we can't..." Zeke was quiet for a moment. "Then we find another way." "What does that mean?" "It means I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." His eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made her breath catch. "Whatever it takes, Sarah. Do you understand me?" She nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good." He stepped back, putting distance between them. "Now show me the children. I need to see them, need to know they're all right." They went inside together. Samuel was already awake, standing by the window with his father's pocket knife in his hand. "Mr. Holloway." The boy's voice was formal, careful. "You came back." "I said I would." "You did." Samuel studied him for a long moment. Then, "Jed said you rode through the night. Is that true?" "It's true." "Why?" Zeke crouched down to Samuel's level. "Because I heard you might be in danger, and nothing in this world was going to keep me away if you needed me." Samuel's throat worked. "Not even the snowstorm." "Not even that." "We could hear it, the wind. Mama said it was too dangerous to ride in." "It was. But you did anyway." "I did." Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then he did something that made Sarah's heart crack wide open. He threw his arms around Zeke's neck. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for coming back." Zeke's arms came up slowly, carefully wrapping around the boy, like he was something precious, something fragile. "Always," he said roughly. "I'll always come back. That's a promise." Sarah watched them, tears streaming down her face, and felt something fundamental shift in the universe. Her son had found his way to trust again, and maybe, just maybe, so had she. Later that night, after the children were asleep and the ranch had settled into quiet, Sarah found Zeke on the porch of the main house. He was staring out at the darkness, a cup of coffee cooling in his hands. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much to think about." She sat down beside him, close, closer than she should. "What Harrison told you? About Crane? How bad is it?" Zeke was quiet for a long moment. "Bad," he finally said. "Really bad. There's a woman in Cheyenne, a widow like you. Crane wanted her land. When she refused to sell, she had an accident. Horse spooked, they said. Threw her. She's been in a wheelchair ever since." Sarah's stomach turned. "He did that? Can't prove it. But Harrison thinks if we dig deep enough, we might find witnesses who'll talk. People who are tired of being scared. Tired of watching Crane get away with everything. And if you find them, if you can prove what he's done, then he goes to prison, and you're free." Zeke turned to look at her. "Really free, Sarah. No more looking over your shoulder. No more waiting for the next threat. Just life. Normal life." "I don't even remember what that feels like." "You will." His voice was soft, certain. "I'll make sure of it." They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Sarah said, "When Rebecca died, how did you survive it?" Zeke flinched at the name, but he didn't pull away. I didn't at first. I wanted to die too. Thought about it more than once. Riding out into a storm and never coming back. Picking a fight I couldn't win. What stopped you? Jed. He found me one night drunk out of my mind about to do something stupid. He sat me down and he said... Zeke paused, his throat working. He said that Rebecca wouldn't want that. That she'd want me to live. To build something. To find a way to make her death mean something. And did you find a way to make it mean something? Zeke turned to look at her. Really look at her in a way that made her feel seen down to her bones. I thought I had. The ranch, the horses, keeping busy, keeping moving, never stopping long enough to feel anything. He shook his head. But it wasn't living, it was just existing. Just surviving. I didn't understand the difference until... Until what? Until you. The word hung in the air between them. Sarah, Zeke stopped, started again. I didn't bring you here expecting anything. I want you to know that. I wasn't looking for a replacement for Rebecca, or a mother for children I don't have or any of that. I just saw a family being torn apart, and I couldn't let it happen. I know. But somewhere along the way... He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Somewhere along the way you became more than just someone I was helping. You became someone I... He stopped himself. Someone you... What? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Someone I can't stop thinking about. The words came out rough, almost angry. Someone I look forward to seeing every morning. Someone who makes this house feel like a home for the first time since Rebecca died. Someone who makes me want things I thought I'd never want again. Sarah's heart was pounding. What things? A future, a family, a life that isn't just about surviving from one day to the next. Zeke turned to face her fully. I'm falling in love with you, Sarah. I know I shouldn't be. I know it's too soon and too complicated and probably the worst idea I've ever had. But I can't seem to stop. Then don't. The words came out before she could think them through. What? Don't stop. Sarah reached out and took his hand. Because I'm falling too. And I'm terrified. I'm terrified because the last time I loved someone, I lost him. I'm terrified because I have 3 children depending on me, and I can't afford to make a mistake. I'm terrified because if Crane wins and they take us away from here, it will destroy me. Not just because of the children, but because of you. Sarah, let me finish. She gripped his hand tighter. Thomas was a good man. I loved him. But what I feel for you is different. It's stronger, deeper, more real. I don't know if that makes me a terrible person or just a human one. But I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of waiting for the next disaster. I want to live, Zeke. Really live. And I want to do it with you. He kissed her. Not gentle, not hesitant. He kissed her like a drowning man reaching for air. Like someone who'd been dying of thirst and finally found water. Sarah kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. This is a terrible idea, Zeke said. The worst. Crane will use it against us. If he finds out. Then we don't let him find out. Not yet. Zeke's forehead pressed against hers. I don't want to hide what I feel for you. Neither do I. But we have to be smart. We have to protect the children. I know. He pulled back his jaw tight with frustration. I know. They sat there in the darkness, hands still intertwined, neither willing to let go. When this is over, Zeke said quietly. When Crane is dealt with and the hearing is done, and you're free. Yes. I want to marry you. His eyes met hers. I want to be a father to your children. I want to build a life with you on this ranch. A real life. Is that something you'd want? Sarah's vision blurred with tears. Yes, she whispered. That's exactly what I want. He kissed her again, softer this time. A promise. "Then we fight," he said. "We fight, and we win, and we build that life together. Deal. Deal." They shook on it, two people sealing a bargain in the darkness. Then Zeke pulled her into his arms, and they held each other while the stars wheeled overhead. For the first time in months, Sarah felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Real, dangerous, beautiful hope. And she was never letting it go. The weeks that followed were the longest of Sarah's life. Harrison sent letter after letter, each one filled with legal jargon and cautious optimism. Witnesses were coming forward. Evidence was mounting. Crane's empire was showing cracks. But Crane wasn't backing down. If anything, he was getting more desperate. The first warning came on a Tuesday morning. Sarah was collecting eggs from the chicken coop when she found a dead crow, its neck twisted, lying in the nesting box where Abigail's favorite hen usually slept. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply picked up the bird with steady hands and carried it to where Jed was working in the barn. "Someone was here last night," she said quietly. "Someone got past your guards." Jed's face went hard as stone. "Show me." He examined the bird, the coop, the ground around it. His expression grew darker with each passing minute. "This wasn't meant to hurt you," he said finally. "It was meant to scare you, to let you know they can get close whenever they want." "Mission accomplished." Sarah's voice was bitter. "I'm terrified." "You don't look terrified." "I'm good at hiding it." Jed studied her for a long moment. "You're stronger than you know, ma'am. Stronger than Crane realizes. That's going to be his undoing." "How do you figure?" "Because he keeps underestimating you, keeps thinking you'll break. But you don't break, do you? You just get harder." Sarah thought about that. About the woman she'd been 3 months ago, desperate, helpless, standing on an auction block, watching her world fall apart. About the woman she was now, still scared, still uncertain, but no longer willing to be a victim. "I used to break," she said softly. "When Thomas died, when the creditors came, I thought I was broken forever." "What changed?" "Zeke." The name came out before she could stop it. "He showed me that I didn't have to be broken, that I could fight back, that I was worth fighting for." Jed's weathered face softened. "He's a good man. Best I've ever known." "I know." "You love him?" It wasn't a question. "I do." Sarah felt tears threatening. "God help me, I do. And I'm terrified that Crane is going to take it all away before we even have a chance to." "He won't." "You can't promise that." "No," Jed agreed. "But I can promise you this: we're not going to stop fighting. Not Zeke, not me, not anyone on this ranch. We're going to fight until there's nothing left to fight with. And then we're going to find something else." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Jed, for everything." "Don't thank me yet. We've got a long way to go." The second warning came 3 days later. Samuel burst into the kitchen, his face white with terror. "Mama, someone took Abigail." Sarah's heart stopped. "What do you mean, took her? Where was she?" "In her garden. She was planting something, and I looked away for just a second. And when I looked back, she was gone. And there was a man on a horse riding toward the north pasture, and—" Sarah was already running. She didn't think, didn't plan, just ran, her skirts flying, her lungs burning, her mind a screaming void of terror. Abigail, her baby. Her sweet, innocent little girl who talked to plants and believed in fairy tales and trusted everyone she met. Gone. She heard hoofbeats behind her, Zeke's voice shouting her name, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Then she saw them. A man on horseback riding hard toward the property line, and in front of him, clutched in one arm like a sack of grain, Abigail. Sarah screamed. The man turned. She couldn't see his face, but she could see him hesitate, see him look at her, then at the riders closing in behind her. Then he dropped Abigail, just dropped her like she was nothing, like she was garbage. Sarah watched her daughter fall tumbling through the air, hitting the frozen ground with a sickening thud. The man rode on, disappearing over a ridge before anyone could catch him. Sarah reached Abigail seconds later. The little girl was crying, clutching her arm, her face scraped and bloody. "Mama, Mama, it hurts. I know, baby, I know. Let me see." Sarah's hands moved automatically, checking for injuries. Her mother's training kicked in: assess, prioritize, treat. The arm wasn't broken, just badly bruised. The scrapes were superficial, no signs of internal injury. She pulled her daughter close and held her, rocking back and forth, tears streaming down her face. "You're okay. You're okay. Mama's here. You're safe now." Zeke appeared beside them, his horse lathered, his face a mask of fury. The rider? Gone. Jed had ridden up behind him. "Crossed onto Crane's land. We can't follow without starting a war." "Then we start a war." "Zeke." He took her. Zeke's voice was deadly calm. He put his hands on a 5-year-old child. He could have killed her. But he didn't. Only because he wanted to make a point. Zeke turned to look at Sarah and Abigail, and something in his expression made Sarah's blood run cold. He wanted us to know that he can get to them any time, that no one is safe. "What are we going to do?" Sarah's voice was raw. "We can't live like this. We can't." "We're not going to." Zeke crouched down beside them. "Abigail, sweetheart, can you tell me what happened? Can you tell me what the man said?" Abigail sniffled, her face buried against her mother's chest. He said to tell you that Mr. Crane sends his regards, and that the next time it won't be a warning." Sarah felt cold rage replace the terror. "I'm going to kill him." "Sarah, I mean it." She looked up at Zeke, and something in her eyes made him go still. "If that man comes near my children again, I will kill him. I don't care about the law. I don't care about consequences. I will end him." "I know." Zeke's voice was quiet. "But you're not going to have to, because I'm going to end this first." "How?" "Harrison sent word this morning. He found something. Something big." Zeke helped her to her feet, careful not to jostle Abigail. "Crane had a partner once, a man named Wilkins. They built an empire together, and then Wilkins disappeared. Everyone assumed he'd moved back east. And he didn't." Zeke's jaw tightened. "Harrison found his grave, unmarked, on Crane's property, and he found a witness, Crane's former housekeeper, who saw Crane shoot Wilkins in the back over a business dispute." Sarah's breath caught. "He's a murderer. A murderer with blood on his hands and a witness willing to testify. Harrison's taking it to the federal marshal. By this time tomorrow, Silas Crane is going to be answering questions about a lot more than an auction dispute. And if that doesn't work..." Zeke's eyes met hers. "Then we go to war." The next 24 hours were agony. Sarah couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything but pace the floor of the cabin and check on her children every 5 minutes. Abigail was recovering her bruises, fading, her spirits lifting with the resilience of childhood. She'd already started talking about her garden again, about the seeds she was going to plant in spring. But Sarah couldn't forget the image of her daughter falling. Couldn't stop imagining what would have happened if the rider hadn't let her go. "Mama," Samuel's voice came from behind her. "You need to rest." "I can't." "You have to. You're not going to be any good to us if you collapse from exhaustion." She turned to look at her son, 8 years old and talking like a grown man. "When did you get so wise? Pa used to say that to you. Remember when you stayed up all night with Hank when he had the croup? You were running yourself ragged, and he sat you down and said, 'You can't pour from an empty cup.'" Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "I remember." He was right. And so am I. Samuel crossed the room and took her hand. "Lie down. Just for a little while. I'll keep watch. Samuel. Please, Mama. For me. She couldn't refuse him. Not when he looked at her like that with Thomas's eyes and Thomas's stubborn jaw and all the love in the world shining through. She lay down on the bed beside Hank and Abigail, and despite everything, exhaustion pulled her under. She dreamed of fire. The sound of gunshots woke her. Sarah bolted upright, her heart pounding. Samuel. I'm here. His voice came from the window. Someone's coming. Lots of someone's. Sarah scrambled out of bed and ran to the door. The yard was full of riders, a dozen at least, maybe more, and at the front of them, Silas Crane. No. The word came out as a whisper. No, no, no. Sarah. Zeke's voice rang out across the yard. Get back inside, lock the door. But she couldn't move. Couldn't look away from Crane's smug, satisfied face. Good evening, Mrs. Whitmore, he called. I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. Zeke stepped forward, his hand on his pistol. You're not welcome here, Crane. Get off my land. Your land? Crane laughed. I'm not sure it will be your land for much longer, Holloway. You see, I've just come from speaking with Judge Morrison. Lovely man. Very reasonable. He's decided that my complaint about the auction has merit. A new hearing has been scheduled for first thing tomorrow morning. Harrison filed a motion. Harrison's motion has been denied. Seems the judge found some irregularities in his paperwork. Crane's smile widened. Shame about that. Sarah's knees went weak. You can't do this, she said. You can't just... I can do whatever I want, Mrs. Whitmore. I thought you'd have learned that by now. Crane's eyes swept over her with cold possession. But I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to make you an offer. I don't want your offer. Hear me out. Crane held up a hand. Come with me willingly, you and the children, and I'll drop all charges against Holloway. He keeps his ranch, his reputation, his freedom. Everyone wins. And if I refuse, then tomorrow the court will order you returned to auction. Your children will be sold separately to the highest bidders, and Holloway here will face charges of interfering with a legal proceeding fraud and, if I'm feeling creative, kidnapping. Crane's smile turned vicious. I wonder how well he'll do in prison. Man like him with his temper and his pride. I give him 6 months before someone puts a knife in his back. You son of a... Zeke lunged forward, but Jed caught his arm. That's what he wants, Jed said quietly. Don't give him the satisfaction. Listen to your man Holloway. Crane was enjoying himself now. Think about it carefully. You've got until dawn to decide. After that... He shrugged. Well, I tried to be reasonable. He wheeled his horse around and rode away, his men following. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway watching them go. This can't be happening. Her voice was numb. This can't be real. It's real. Zeke's voice was rough with fury. But it's not over. You heard him. He owns the judge. He owns the law. How are we supposed to fight that? I don't know. Zeke turned to face her. But we're not giving up. Not now. Not ever. And if there's no way out, if he wins... Zeke crossed the yard in 3 long strides. He took her face in his hands and forced her to look at him. Then we run. What? If there's no legal way to stop him, we run. We take the children and we disappear. Head west. California. Mexico. Somewhere Crane's influence doesn't reach. You'd give up everything, the ranch, your life here. In a heartbeat. His eyes burned into hers. Sarah, none of this means anything without you. The ranch, the horses, the land, it's just stuff. You're what matters. You and those children. If I have to choose between keeping all this and keeping you safe, it's not even a choice. Zeke, tell me you understand. Tell me you know that I would burn this place to the ground before I'd let him take you. Tears were streaming down her face now. I understand. Good. He kissed her forehead. Now go inside. Lock the door. Let me figure out what we're going to do." She did as he asked, but she didn't sleep. None of them did. The night passed in agonizing slowness. Sarah sat by the window watching the darkness, her mind racing through possibilities and discarding them one by one. Crane would hunt them. He'd never stop. Fight with what? They had a handful of ranch hands against Crane's army of hired thugs. Surrender. The thought made her physically ill. Then just before dawn, a rider appeared on the horizon. Sarah's heart stopped, then started again when she recognized the horse. "It's Tommy," she called. "Tommy's back." The young ranch hand had been sent to Cheyenne 2 days ago, carrying urgent messages to Harrison. Sarah had almost forgotten about him in the chaos of everything else. She ran outside. Tommy practically fell off his horse, his face flushed with excitement. "Where's Mr. Holloway?" he gasped. "I've got news. Big news." Zeke emerged from the barn, Jed at his side. "What is it?" "The federal marshal." Tommy was grinning now despite his exhaustion. "He's coming." Harrison convinced him. They've got the witness, Mrs. Collins Crane's old housekeeper, and they've got the evidence about the murder. The marshal's riding for Willow Creek right now with a warrant for Crane's arrest. Sarah felt the world tilt. When? He should be there by noon. Maybe sooner. Tommy turned to Zeke. "Harrison said to tell you stall. Whatever it takes, stall the hearing until the marshal gets there. Once Crane's arrested, all his legal claims become invalid. The judge won't be able to help him. Stall." Zeke's expression had shifted from despair to something that looked almost like hope. "We can do that." "How?" Sarah asked. "Crane set the hearing for dawn. That's less than an hour away." "Then we'd better get moving." Zeke was already striding toward the house. "Jed, saddle the horses. Tommy, get something to eat and rest, you've earned it. Sarah." He stopped, turned back to her. "Come with me." "Where?" "To the hearing. I want you there. I want Crane to see your face when his world comes crashing down." Sarah's heart swelled. "Gladly." The ride to Willow Creek was the longest of Sarah's life. She left the children with Tommy and Mrs. Ellis, the wife of one of the ranch hands. Leaving them was agony, but she knew she needed to be there. Needed to face Crane one last time. The courthouse was packed when they arrived. Word had spread about the hearing, and it seemed like half the territory had come to watch. Crane was already there, looking smug and satisfied in his expensive suit. Judge Morrison sat behind the bench, avoiding everyone's eyes. "Ah, Mrs. Whitmore." Crane rose as she entered. "So glad you could join us. Have you considered my offer?" "I have." Sarah's voice was steady. "And my answer is no." Crane's smile flickered. "I'd reconsider if I were you. This won't end well for—" "Let's get started." Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "The court is now in session." The next hour was a nightmare of legal maneuvering. Zeke's lawyer from Willow Creek, a nervous young man named Peters, did his best filing objection after objection, requesting delays and continuances. The judge denied most of them, but each one ate up precious minutes. Sarah watched the clock on the wall counting down. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 11:30. "Your Honor, this is ridiculous." Crane was losing patience. "The defense is clearly stalling. I demand that you rule on the original complaint immediately." "Mr. Crane makes a valid point." The judge shuffled his papers. "I see no reason for further delay. It is the ruling of this court that—" The doors burst open. A man strode into the courtroom wearing a marshal's badge and an expression of grim satisfaction. Behind him came a dozen armed men. "Silas Crane," the marshal's voice rang out. "You're under arrest for the murder of William Wilkins. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say. This is outrageous." Crane shot to his feet. "You can't." "I can and I am." The marshal grabbed Crane's arm. "We have a witness. We have evidence. and we have a federal warrant. You're done, Crane. It's over." Sarah watched as the color drained from Crane's face, watched as the smug confidence crumbled into fear, watched as the man who had terrorized her for months was finally brought to his knees. "This isn't over," Crane shouted as they dragged him away. "You hear me, Holloway? This isn't—" The doors closed behind him, cutting off his voice. The courtroom erupted. People were shouting, cheering, crying. Judge Morrison had disappeared, probably through a back door. Peters was shaking Zeke's hand, babbling something about precedent and dismissals. But Sarah barely heard any of it. She was looking at Zeke. At the man who had saved her life, saved her children, saved her very soul. He was looking back at her. "It's over," he said quietly. "It's really over." "Is it?" She couldn't quite believe it, couldn't quite let herself hope. What about the hearing? What about? With Crane under arrest, his complaint becomes invalid. All of his legal claims are frozen pending investigation. Peters jumped in, his voice high with excitement. "You're free, Mrs. Whitmore. Legally, completely free. The original sale stands." Free. The word washed over her like a wave. She was free. Her children were safe. Crane was going to prison. And the man she loved was standing right in front of her, looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Sarah did the only thing she could do. She threw herself into his arms. The crowd cheered. She didn't care. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "I love you so much. I love you too." His arms tightened around her. "God, Sarah, I love you too." They stood there holding each other while the world celebrated around them. It was over. They had won. And now, finally, they could start living. The ride back to the ranch felt different. The fear that had been Sarah's constant companion for months was gone, replaced by something light and golden. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Zeke rode beside her close enough that their knees occasionally touched. Every time they did, he smiled a real smile, the kind she'd rarely seen from him. "You're different," she said. "How so?" "Lighter, like someone lifted a weight off your shoulders." "Someone did." He reached over and took her hand. "You. I didn't do anything. You gave me something to fight for, something worth protecting." His grip tightened. "Before you came, I was just existing, going through the motions, but now I want to live, really live, with you, with the children, building something that matters." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "That's all I've ever wanted." "Then let's make it happen." He pulled his horse to a stop. She did the same, confusion crossing her face. "What are you doing?" Zeke dismounted. Then he knelt in the frozen dirt right there on the road and looked up at her. "Sarah Grace Whitmore, I know this isn't proper. I know I should wait, ask permission, do things the right way, but I've spent too much of my life waiting. Too much time being careful and cautious and afraid. Zeke, will you marry me?" His voice was rough with emotion. "Not because of contracts or convenience or protection, but because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life waking up next to you. Because I want to be a father to your children, and maybe, God willing, have more children with you. Will you marry me, Sarah?" She was crying now, really crying, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times. Yes." He surged to his feet and kissed her. Right there on the road, in full view of anyone who might pass by. She kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning like fools, Zeke said, "We should probably get home. Tell the children. They're going to be so happy. Samuel might need convincing. Samuel already loves you." Sarah wiped her eyes. "He told me so. Said you were the kind of man his pa would have been proud to know." Something shifted in Zeke's expression. Something soft and vulnerable. "He said that." "He did." Zeke was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'll try to be worthy of that. Every day. I promise." "You already are." They rode the rest of the way home with their hands intertwined, their hearts full, and their futures finally blessedly clear. The children's reaction was everything Sarah had hoped for. Abigail squealed and threw herself at Zeke, demanding to know if she could call him Papa now. Hank didn't fully understand, but he laughed when everyone else did, and hugged Zeke's leg with cheerful abandon. And Samuel stood back at first, watching with those careful eyes. Then he walked up to Zeke and held out his hand. "Welcome to the family, sir," he said formally. Zeke shook it with equal gravity. "Thank you, Samuel. I'll do my best to deserve the honor." Then Samuel's composure cracked, and he hugged Zeke tight, his face pressed against the man's chest. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for keeping us together." Zeke's arms came around the boy. "Always. That's a promise." Sarah watched them, her heart so full it ached. They were a family now, a real complete family. And nothing, not Silas Crane, not the law, not fate itself was ever going to tear them apart. The weeks after Crane's arrest passed in a blur of activity. There were depositions to give, papers to sign, legal matters that seemed endless. But through it all, Sarah felt a lightness she hadn't experienced since before Thomas died. Freedom tasted sweeter than she'd imagined. The wedding was set for Christmas Eve. Zeke had wanted to marry her immediately, but Sarah insisted on waiting. "I want to do this right," she told him. "I want the children to be part of it. I want to wear a proper dress and have flowers, and make vows in front of people who matter to us." "Anything you want," Zeke said. "Anything at all." So they waited, and planned, and slowly, carefully began building the life they'd both dreamed of. The first real test came 3 weeks before the wedding. Sarah was in the kitchen teaching Abigail how to make pie crust when Samuel burst through the door. "Mama, there's a woman here. She's asking for Mr. Holloway." Sarah wiped her hands on her apron and went to the window. A carriage had pulled up in the yard, an expensive one with matched horses and a uniformed driver. "Stay here," she told Abigail. "Watch your brother." She found Zeke already in the yard, facing a woman she'd never seen before. Older, elegant, with silver hair piled high and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Sarah." Zeke's voice was strained. "This is Margaret Holloway, my mother." Sarah's heart stopped. His mother. Zeke had told her his mother died when he was 12, that she'd been sick with consumption and wasted away while his father drank himself into oblivion. He'd lied. "Mrs. Holloway." Sarah's voice came out steady, though her mind was reeling. "I wasn't aware Zeke had any family." "He doesn't." The woman's voice was ice. "Not anymore. Not since he chose to abandon his responsibilities and run off to this godforsaken wilderness." "Mother, don't." Margaret held up a hand. "I didn't come to argue. I came to see for myself if the rumors were true." "What rumors?" "That my son is about to marry a woman he bought off an auction block." Margaret's eyes swept over Sarah with cold assessment. A widow with 3 children. A woman with nothing to her name but debt and desperation. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Mrs. Holloway, I'm not finished." Margaret stepped closer. "I've spent the last 15 years watching my son throw away everything his father and I built. Our family's reputation, our social standing, our future, and now this." "That's enough." Zeke's voice was hard. "You don't get to come here and insult the woman I love, not after everything you did." "Everything I did?" Margaret laughed. "I did what any mother would do. I tried to save you from yourself. You tried to control me. There's a difference. I tried to give you a future. You tried to give me your future." Zeke's composure cracked. "A future I never wanted. A life I never asked for. And when I refused to play along, you cut me off. You told everyone I was dead. You erased me from the family like I never existed." Sarah watched the exchange, her mind racing. There was so much she didn't know, so much Zeke had never told her. "I did what I had to do," Margaret said, "to protect our name." "Our name?" Zeke's voice dripped with contempt. "That's all you ever cared about, wasn't it? The Holloway name, the Holloway legacy. Never mind what I wanted, never mind who I was. I cared about you. No, you cared about what I could give you, an heir, a continuation of your precious bloodline, someone to carry on after you were gone." Margaret's face went white. "That's not true." "It is true." Zeke stepped toward her. "And the moment I chose my own path, you threw me away, just like you threw away Rebecca." Sarah's breath caught. "Rebecca? Didn't he tell you?" Margaret's voice had gone vicious. "His precious wife, the girl he married against my express wishes, a nobody from a nothing family." "Mother, I told him what would happen. I warned him that she wasn't strong enough for this life, that she'd break. And she did, didn't she? Died in childbirth along with that baby." "Stop." Zeke's voice was barely above a whisper. "Stop it. The truth hurts, doesn't it? If you'd listened to me, if you'd married the woman I chose for you, Rebecca would still be alive. Your son would still be alive. But you were too proud, too stubborn, and now you're doing it again." Margaret pointed at Sarah. "Another unsuitable match. Another woman who'll bring you nothing but pain." "I said stop." Zeke's roar echoed across the yard. Sarah had never seen him like this. Face twisted with rage, hands shaking his whole body, trembling with barely contained fury. "Get out," he said. "Get off my land, get out of my life, and don't ever come back." "Ezra, I mean it, Mother. If I ever see you again, I won't be responsible for what I do." Margaret stared at him for a long moment. Then something shifted in her expression. Something that looked almost like fear. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "When she leaves you, and she will leave you, they always do, you'll wish you'd listened." "Goodbye, Mother." Margaret turned and walked back to her carriage. She climbed in without looking back. The driver snapped the reins and the carriage rolled away. Sarah and Zeke stood in the yard, watching it disappear. "I'm sorry." Zeke's voice was rough. "I should have told you. About her. About all of it." "Yes, you should have." "I was ashamed." He turned to face her. "My whole life, I've been running from who I was, who she wanted me to be. I thought if I could just get far enough away, start over completely, I could be someone else. Someone better. And Rebecca..." Pain flickered across his face. "Rebecca was the first person who ever loved me for who I actually was. Not the Holloway name, not the family fortune, just me. What happened to her wasn't your fault. Wasn't it?" His voice cracked. "My mother was right about one thing. I was stubborn, proud. I could have given Rebecca an easier life, could have stayed in Boston, played the part my mother wanted. But I dragged her out here instead, made her live in a half-finished house on a piece of dirt that nobody wanted. She chose to come with you. Because she loved me, and it killed her." Sarah stepped closer, took his face in her hands, forced him to look at her. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "What happened to Rebecca was a tragedy, but it wasn't your fault. Women die in childbirth every day. It's horrible and unfair, and it breaks people's hearts, but it's not something you caused. If I'd been there..." "You were there. Jed told me. You were there for every moment. You held her hand. You told her you loved her. You did everything right." Tears were streaming down his face now. "It wasn't enough. It was everything. It was all anyone could do." Sarah brushed the tears away with her thumbs. "And now you have a choice. You can keep carrying this guilt forever. Let it poison everything good in your life. Or you can let it go. Choose to live. Choose to love again." "I already have." His voice was broken. "I already love you, Sarah. More than I thought possible." "Then trust me. Trust that I'm not going anywhere. Trust that I'm strong enough to handle whatever life throws at us. Trust that we can build something beautiful together, not in spite of your past, but because of it." He pulled her close, held her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Let me be the judge of that." They stood there for a long time holding each other while the wind whipped around them, and the children watched from the window. When they finally broke apart, Zeke's eyes were clear, determined. "I have something to tell you," he said. "Something I should have said weeks ago." "What?" "The ranch, the money I used to buy your contract. It didn't come from horse breeding." Sarah's stomach dropped. "Then where?" "My inheritance. The money my mother tried to use to control me. I took it when I left Boston, invested it, built this place with it." He took a breath. "I'm rich, Sarah. Really rich. And I never told you because I was afraid you'd think I was just another version of Crane. You're nothing like Crane. I know that now, but back then," he shook his head, "I didn't want you to feel obligated. Didn't want you to think you had to love me because I'd given you money. Is that why you insisted on paying me wages, even though you'd already bought my contract?" "Yes." "And the money you offered for the children's education?" "Part of it. I have enough to send all 3 of them to the best schools in the country, if that's what they want." Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing. "You lied to me," she finally said. "About your mother. About your money. About who you really are." "I know. I don't like being lied to." "I know that too. If we're going to do this, if we're going to build a life together, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more half-truths. No more protecting me from things you think will hurt me." She looked him dead in the eye. "I'm stronger than you think, Zeke. I've survived things that would have broken most people, so stop treating me like I'm fragile. You're the least fragile person I've ever met. Then act like it." He nodded slowly. "No more secrets. I promise." "Good." She took his hand. "Now let's go inside and explain to the children why there was a fancy lady yelling in our yard." That conversation went better than Sarah expected. Samuel predictably had questions. "So your mother is alive," he said, staring at Zeke. "But you told us she was dead." "I know. I'm sorry." "Why did you lie?" Zeke crouched down to the boy's level. "Because I was ashamed. My mother and we don't get along. She wanted me to be someone I couldn't be. And when I refused, she pretended I didn't exist. I guess I started doing the same thing." Samuel considered this. "My pa and his brother didn't talk either. Ma said they had a falling out over some land." "Families are complicated." "Yeah." Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then, "Is she going to try to take us away, like Mr. Crane did?" "No." Zeke's voice was firm. "She doesn't have any power here. She can't hurt us." "But she's rich, right? Rich people can do whatever they want." "Not here. Not in Wyoming territory. Out here, what matters is what you build with your own 2 hands. Your reputation. Your word." Zeke met the boy's eyes. "I give you my word, Samuel. Nobody is ever going to take you or your sisters or your mother away from me. I'll die first." Samuel studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said simply. "I believe you." The days leading up to Christmas Eve were chaotic, but happy. Martha Kinsey, the boarding house owner from town, had become Sarah's closest friend. She arrived a week before the wedding with fabric and ribbons and an army of women ready to help. "You're getting married properly," Martha declared, "even if it kills me." They sewed Sarah's dress together, a simple but elegant creation in deep blue. Rebecca's color, Zeke had told her, but Sarah didn't mind. It felt right somehow, honoring the woman who'd loved him first. Abigail was beside herself with excitement. "Can I really throw flowers?" she asked for the 100th time. "Yes, sweet girl." "And wear a pretty dress?" "The prettiest dress you've ever seen." And call Mr. Holloway Papa after. Sarah's heart clenched. Do you want to call him Papa? Abigail nodded solemnly. He saved us. He keeps us safe. He loves you. That's what papas do. Then yes, after the wedding you can call him Papa. Abigail squealed and threw her arms around Sarah's neck. The night before the wedding, Sarah couldn't sleep. She slipped out of the cabin and walked across the yard to the main house. The door was unlocked as always. She found Zeke in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. Couldn't sleep either, she asked. No. He looked up at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. I keep thinking about tomorrow, about everything that could go wrong. What could go wrong? My mother could come back. Crane could escape from prison. The pastor could get snowed in. Zeke. I know I'm being ridiculous. He ran a hand through his hair. It's just, I've been waiting for this for so long. For you. For a family. For a chance to do things right. And now that it's finally happening, you're afraid something will take it away. Yes. Sarah sat down across from him. Can I tell you something? Anything. When Thomas died, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never be happy again, never feel safe, never have anything to look forward to. She reached across the table and took his hand. And then you came along, this grumpy, stubborn, infuriating cowboy who paid a fortune to keep a stranger's family together. I'm not grumpy. You're very grumpy. She smiled. But you're also kind, and patient, and good, Zeke. So good that it scares me sometimes. I'm not... Let me finish. She squeezed his hand. Tomorrow, I'm going to marry you. I'm going to stand up in front of everyone we care about and promise to spend the rest of my life with you. And I'm not scared, not anymore. How can you not be scared? Because I know who you are, not the Holloway heir, not the man your mother wanted you to be, just you. Zeke. The man who rides through snowstorms to protect people. The man who teaches my son about horses. The man who carries my daughter on his shoulders and lets my youngest follow him around like a shadow. Her eyes filled with tears. I know you, Zeke, the real you, and I love every single part of it. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he was around the table pulling her to her feet, kissing her like the world was ending. I love you, he said against her lips. God, Sarah, I love you so much. I know. She smiled through her tears. I know you do. They stood there in the kitchen holding each other until the first light of dawn crept through the windows. Then Sarah pulled back. I have to go. Martha will kill me if I'm not ready on time. Can't have that. No, we can't. She kissed him one more time. I'll see you at the church. I'll be the one at the altar looking terrified. You'll be fine. I'll be marrying you. I'll be better than fine. The wedding was everything Sarah had dreamed of, and nothing like she'd expected. The church was packed. Ranch hands she barely knew had come to see them married. Townspeople who'd once looked the other way now smiled and nodded. Even Judge Morrison's replacement, a fair-minded man named Thompson, had come to offer his congratulations. Sarah stood at the back of the church, her children around her, waiting for the moment when the doors would open. You look beautiful, Mama, Abigail whispered. Thank you, sweet girl. Are you nervous? A little? Don't be. Abigail reached up and took her hand. Papa Zeke loves you. He'll take care of us. Papa Zeke. The words made Sarah's heart swell. Yes, she said softly. He will. The doors opened. Sarah walked down the aisle with Samuel on one side and Abigail on the other, Hank toddling ahead of them, scattering flower petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy. But she barely noticed any of it. She was looking at Zeke. He stood at the altar dressed in his best clothes, looking more handsome than she'd ever seen him. And the expression on his face, the love, the hope, the fierce, overwhelming joy took her breath away. She reached the altar, took his hands, looked into his eyes. Hi, she whispered. Hi yourself. The pastor began to speak. Words about love and commitment and the sacred bond of marriage. But Sarah barely heard them. She was too focused on Zeke's face, on the tears gathering in his gray eyes, on the slight trembling of his hands as he held hers. Do you, Ezra Holloway, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. His voice was rough but certain. With everything I am. And do you, Sarah Grace Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Sarah looked at Zeke, at the man who'd saved her, who'd loved her, who'd given her hope when she'd had none. I do, she said, forever and always. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The pastor smiled. You may kiss the bride. Zeke kissed her. The church erupted in cheers, and Sarah Grace Holloway, who'd once stood on an auction block, certain she'd lost everything, realized that she'd found something far greater than she'd ever lost. She'd found home. The celebration afterward was joyful chaos. The ranch hands had decorated the barn with ribbons and lanterns. Martha had organized a feast that could have fed an army. Music played. People danced and laughter echoed off the walls. But the moment Sarah would remember forever came later, after the guests had gone and the children were tucked into bed. She and Zeke stood on the porch of the main house, their house now looking out at the ranch they'd built together. I have something for you, Zeke said. Another surprise. The last one, I promise. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This came from Harrison today. Sarah took it with trembling hands, unfolded it, read it, then read it again. This is your contract, the original document that gave me legal claim over you and the children. Zeke took it from her hands. Watch. He struck a match and touched it to the paper. Sarah watched it burn, watched the words contract of indenture and property and obligation disappear into ash. You're free, Zeke said quietly. Completely, totally free. No contracts, no obligations, just you and me choosing each other every single day. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He pulled her close. I never wanted to own you, Sarah. I wanted to love you. And love isn't about possession or control. It's about choice. Every day you choose me, and every day I choose you. That's what makes it real. I love you, she whispered. So much. I love you too. He kissed her forehead. Now and always. They stood there together, watching the ashes scatter in the wind, and Sarah felt the last chains of her old life fall away. She was no longer Sarah Grace Whitmore widow. No longer a woman defined by debt and desperation and fear. She was Sarah Grace Holloway, wife and mother. A woman who had faced impossible odds and won. A woman who had found love in the most unlikely of places. A woman who had been sold but refused to be broken. Behind her the door creaked open. Mama, Papa, Zeke. Abigail stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. What is it, sweet girl? I had a bad dream. Can I stay with you? Sarah looked at Zeke. He smiled and held out his arms. Abigail ran to him, and he scooped her up, settling her against his chest. What was the dream about? He asked softly. The bad men came back. They tried to take us away. Nobody's going to take you anywhere. Not ever again. Promise. Promise. Abigail snuggled closer. I love you, Papa Zeke. I love you too, Abby. More than you know. Sarah watched them together, her daughter in the arms of the man she loved, and felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace. Real lasting peace. The kind she'd never thought she'd feel again. Samuel appeared in the doorway next, carrying a sleepy Hank on his hip. Couldn't sleep either, he said. Hank woke up and started crying. Bring him here. Soon all 5 of them were crowded together on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars wheel overhead. Mama, Samuel said quietly, are we really going to be okay now? Sarah looked at her children, at her husband, at the life they'd built from the ashes of everything they'd lost. Yes, baby, she said. We're really going to be okay. How do you know? Because we have each other, and because we have something else that nobody can take away. What's that? Sarah smiled. Love, real love, the kind that fights and forgives and never gives up, the kind that builds families out of strangers and turns houses into homes. She reached out and touched his face. The kind your papa would have wanted for us. Samuel's eyes glistened. You think he's watching from wherever he is? I think he's proud, Sarah said softly. Proud of how brave you've been, proud of how you've taken care of your sisters, proud of the young man you're becoming. I miss him. I know, baby, I miss him too. But missing someone doesn't mean we stop living. It means we carry them with us in our hearts while we keep moving forward. Samuel was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned against Zeke's side, something he'd never done before. Thank you, he said quietly, for saving us. Zeke's arm came around the boy's shoulders. Thank you for letting me. They sat together as a family, whole, healed, hopeful, until the stars faded and the first light of Christmas morning began to glow on the horizon. It was Abigail who broke the silence. Mama, Papa Zeke, is it Christmas now? Yes, sweet girl, it's Christmas. Does that mean we can open presents? Zeke laughed a real full laugh that Sarah had rarely heard from him. In a little while. Let's watch the sunrise first. So they did. 5 people who'd found each other against impossible odds, who'd fought and struggled and survived, who'd built something beautiful from the ruins of their broken pasts. A family. Not by blood, by choice. And that Sarah thought, as the sun rose over their ranch, over their home, over their future, was the most powerful thing of all. Years later, when people asked Sarah about that day on the auction block, about the moment when a dusty cowboy spoke 5 words that changed everything, she would smile and shake her head. That wasn't the moment that mattered, she'd say. The moment that mattered came later, when he burned my contract, when he set me free, when he chose to love me, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. She'd look at her husband, then at the man who'd given her everything, and her eyes would fill with happy tears. He could have kept that paper, could have held it over me forever, but he didn't, because he understood something that most people never learn. What's that, they'd ask. And Sarah Grace Holloway, who'd once been sold but was never truly owned, would answer, love isn't about possession. It's about setting someone free and trusting them to stay anyway. She stayed. Every single day, for the rest of her life, she stayed. And so did he. Because that's what love is. That's what family is. That's what it means to be home.